Welcome back to the Unlearning Curve. Today, we're diving headfirst into the rabbit hole of misplaced confidence. We're going to be talking about, in our Cult of the Month, we're going to be talking about the I do my own research crowd. You know the ones armed with the Wi-Fi connections, zero credentials, and enough certainty
but a
to
reliable
keep them running.
source.
Yeah, always a reliable source. So yes. So yeah, has anyone run into these folks? The I do my own research crowd. I've got stories. We've all got stories.
Back when I was a
feel called out
vegan,
after I just talked about my internet connection.
back when I was a vegan, one of our friends that we did some stuff with, he just got really mad at me one time for no reason. And so we weren't friends for a little while, but then we made up and I helped him with something. And then during COVID, he came at me really strong. And I was like, what the heck is wrong with this guy? And it turned out he had a video for me to listen to. I don't think it had any video. I listened to it, and of course, it's like a guy in his basement, right? And he's like, "We have real reliable sources, So, and it's just
Was this RFK Jr.?
that's pretty much what he sounded like. But then he, it was crazy stuff, but this guy was just convinced. And this is a middle class, 30-something, respectable kind of person. But he had seen one video from some guy in his basement that had a reliable source from his brother-in-law or whatever. We know this is true. It's scary. Again, it draws attention because of fear, and it gets people excited. Of course, there's a conspiracy against all of you, and that's happened so much during COVID. I mean, right? I mean, the QAnon, for certain, turns out to might be like 6 or 8 people that were grifters anyhow, doing porn, selling porn and things like that, and just decided to see how gullible Trump supporters were. And admitted, some of them just admitted we just wanted to get what we could out of it. And that's where, in the last time we mentioned adrenochrome, one of the guys is like an ex-CIA agent, one of those 6 to 8 people that are in that circle. And he's weird. I mean, if you ever had an interview with him, he was the one that kind of brought this adrenochrome thing forward and probably caused thinking around Pizzagate and all that stuff. It's just so bizarre, that in the time of information, in the time when we have all the information, there's no gatekeepers anymore, and we can get to the information, that people just avoid doing any actual research, but they do their own research, which I don't know what the hell that means.
But what does that give them? Are we just is this just some sort of, they go out searching for confirmation bias?
Yes.
Or what do we think this is? What is it that, because it does, there's it's almost like a drug for a lot of people as well too. Ooh, sure, I'm getting the real information and only I have this. And now Yeah,
they definitely made some money with the 6 and 8chan or whatever that stuff
4chan,
was.
8chan,
yeah, they made plenty of money, and then probably moved on to something else. But the movement continues, maybe dying out somewhat. But something happened during COVID that just trashed our reasoning.
It's not new, and it's not special to COVID. It happens you can look at the same shit during the 2008 economic crash. Again, I talked about this in the last segment. When things are bad, people get desperate and they go for whatever makes them feel good, or is it's an easy solution. That's just what it is all the time. Again, it's not like this is a recent thing, or it's since social media, you can argue that social media or the 24-hour news network has made it worse. It's not new. It's been going on since humans have formed civilizations, which goes back 7,000 or so years ago. It's just the same shit we always do, which is we feel bad. Who can we go to? Who's going to give me a quick answer? It's the guy with the conspiracy theory who says it's all this cabal's fault, or it's the people that are saying it's this scapegoated group, whether it's whether it's this ethnic minority or whatever it is, we're going to do pogroms against the Jews and that'll fix our thing because God will be happy with us. It's the same thing. It's just not new. And it frustrates me that like we can't move, like we can't figure out a way to get past this, but it's just the easy answer. And that's, I don't think it'll move past that. I think COVID is obviously a very emblematic instance of it, but it's, again, when people are very low, they're very desperate, they don't know what to do, they're in a situation they've never been in, and so they reach out to anyone who goes, well, the vaccines, like, they cause autism or whatever the fuck, like, I don't know. I need to work on my RFK impression.
Yeah. Well, he's a chiropractor, and he did say this week that he's not qualified to give medical advice. That's why he's the head of HHS.
Yeah.
Right.
That's always exciting. But do we think some of this, because I know folks, I like how you were laying it out, JD, where in many ways it seems like this is more of an emotional response to something. Because sometimes, like, even though I hate doing this because it sounds, well, okay, I'm just going to say it anyway. Sometimes it seems like some of this is just either a lack of intelligence or a lack of education that drives like folks to believe in some of these crazy things. I don't think it can simply be that.
No, it's an unwillingness. It's an unwillingness to do the hard work. At the last church I was at, just totally got it. And part of the struggle at that last church was just this pastor who they sent to me to help me, and he was very helpful, and he's a doer and so on. But one time I tried to get him to read a book, and he said, I just read the Bible. That's all I read. I said, oh my God. Well, how is that a well-rounded education? And this guy, I mean, he was a simple guy, but I don't think he was dumb. I don't think he didn't have the ability to learn. I just don't think he wanted to. I think it was easier to accept what was handed to him, and it sounds juicy, and it'll get people afraid, so they'll react to it. But what does it mean to do your own research? I mean, what do people mean when they say that?
I don't know. This was like a weekend ago. Don't often get dumbfounded by people's dumbassery. I'm sitting with, let's see, we were down in Atlanta, and I'm sitting with
Ass-hattery or just dumbassery?
Dumbassery, ass-hattery.
Dumbass-hattery?
Yeah. One of those.
Okay, sorry.
It's a good
Go
word.
ahead.
No, but I'm sitting. My sister-in-law is like telling me the story about how she's gotten into foraging for mushrooms, and then she's telling me that, well, I looked it up, and basically in Georgia, there's no poisonous mushrooms.
Hmm.
So she's like, the worst, it may give you a tummy ache or something like that, but everything's fine. And I was just kind of like, that is one of the single most stupid things I've ever heard a person say. Like, and you simply just hop on, like, Google, like, even just the most basic one, poisonous mushrooms in Georgia, boom, 5, like, first thing that pops up. But she said she'd done her research and she knows differently and all of these other kind of things. And I'm like, sure, fine, go for it. Have fun with it. See how this turns out.
Yeah.
But it dumbfounds me sometimes like that, where the information is so simple. And I'm left wondering, like, do people just want to feel more powerful in a certain sense? Like, I have the information, I can control this, I know this, and you don't know this. Somehow, there has to be some sort of ego behind this as well, because it just feels so dumb in a lot of these instances.
Yeah, I do my own research. So you have a lab, you've got a degree that says you're an expert in that, and somebody gave you a grant to study this? Or do you mean that your friend told you, or I did a quick Google search, used one source? JD's real big, I know, on peer-reviewed research, but reading peer-reviewed research takes time, energy, and you might think a little bit. And I think we've been preconditioned to seek the easy, avoid pain and seek pleasure, right? So it's something kind of base to us, but it's definitely out of hand when you say, I'm going to make big life decisions like vaccine and things like that.
Or not vaccinating your kids while you were already vaccinated as a kid.
Yeah, you're gonna,
or possibly eating death cap mushrooms in Georgia, because that's the first fucking
just based on
result that
hearsay
comes up when you do a Google search.
Yeah,
I'm just hearing this, and I'm just kind of, it's like, yeah, wow.
it's, again, I don't think it's as, I mean, again, I think we want to like complicate this and be like, it must be that they're like thinking about this and they're like, I gotta get this like over on other. I think it's just like you saw an Instagram post that's like, no fucking poisonous mushrooms in Georgia, go fucking search it out. And then, but it's just like, then you're just like, well, now I have a piece of fact in my mind, and you don't even think about it. I don't think it's that there's cognition that happens. I think it's, I feel like I have this data and then I relay it to a friend. Did you know there's no poison mushroom? Really? There's no poison? That's awesome. I love, looking for mushrooms. And then it's like, okay, I got the fucking dopamine hit. I got the serotonin. Now I feel good and I'm going to repeat it. Like, I don't think it's deeper than that. I don't think we have to like psychoanalyze it. It just is like, you saw something, you regurgitated it, and it made you feel good. Like, that's like the base of that whole idea that like, and I like try to tell my kids this all the time because they're like, oh, they're doing the same thing I did. It's like, well, they just heard you say it and then they said it and someone else validated them and they said they felt smart. So you should feel good about yourself because they felt smart on your behalf. Like, well, I don't think it's more complicated.
But for your relative, that could be something that could be fun. It could be interesting. It could be, you could learn from it and also probably benefit from the benefits of mushrooms, right?
Sure.
There could be a lot of positive
especially
in that.
The ones you dig out of cow shit. I agree.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, but you can't be irresponsible about any of it, right? There's a need to be kind of responsible for that, I think. Stuart, you asked a question. You wrote down a question: conspiracy and curiosity. I'm curious what you're thinking about that. What's the difference between conspiracy and curiosity?
Well, I feel like because we can talk about both the whole like going down the rabbit hole idea. I think things can be born out of curiosity, but I think it's just people can continue to go to a place where it does become conspiracy, where they continue just to not listen to logic and reason and other ideas that are floating in the ether and just lock in on something. I think it may give, I don't know. I don't know where that line is where it eventually becomes conspiracy, but usually it's where it diverges with reality.
Yeah, we like finite things, and so we take Christianity or belief systems, right? We're curious about it. Well, then someone gives us an explanation that sounds reasonable, and there's a group, and there's money, and there's acceptance, and there's the high of righteousness, like we talked about before. So I'll just accept this. I had a friend that's in deconstruction that's telling me to stop deconstructing. And I'm like, why would I do that? Why would I stop? I found this path where I can question, where I can learn, where I can challenge assumptions that I have and grow and get wiser and live my life better and so on. But the temptation is just to stop and say, this is the answer, right? This is it.
You've gone far enough, Carl. Don't go further.
I did my research, which means, I paid attention. It may even mean that they really tried to learn for a little while. Then someone, like you guys have been saying, someone gives them a conclusion, just like with the Bible, this is it. You don't need anything else. And so the guy's not reading any books, not listening to any other speakers except prescribed by the Southern Baptist Convention. We just stop and don't go.
No, that story reminded me, like, have you seen like how they grow square watermelons? They'll grow it in a square thing, and so they'll force it into this box, and that just will end up being, oh cool, I've got a cube that's a watermelon. And that was like, I love how you put that, Carl, where someone's like, yeah, I think you've done enough deconstructing. Let me take away your pastor's license. You don't need to be deconstructing any further. But it's, when that guy was saying that, do you think it was out of, it really says more about him than anything. Like, I guess where you're going makes him fearful.
Yeah.
That he may end up questioning stuff himself.
Yeah. My friend, Dr. Paul, used to say, if you go from A to B, people are usually okay with it. But if you go to C and they're still at A, you've moved too far and you make them uncomfortable. And they haven't discovered what you've discovered. And they're probably not going to accept it from you, but you've moved on and you're making them uncomfortable. And that's really their problem. It's not yours, I think. I mean, we can be compassionate. We can explain ourselves to a certain degree and so on. But for someone just say, I'm going to draw my conclusions out of thin air and not not use the brain I have to. And maybe part of that's because we're in survival mode all the time, especially in religion. We're just in crisis mode all the time. And religion creates crisis for us, like we talked about in the last session. It creates crisis so that when we come out of that, it feels like a breakthrough. We want you to have a breakthrough, so we're going to take you into a crisis. And so we can feel, even though we've done minimal research, we can say, we can not even start talking about intuition and things like that. Well, I have intuition. Or Jim Baker, that we talked about last time, can say, well, I heard from God. And so who are the other people that give him all the money who are they to question him?
Mm-hmm.
That was a ramble. I'm not sure where
No, JD, I want you to, which I love your hat. So I'm going to say this is your professor hat, your scholar teaching hat. What does it actually say?
Well, I have to read it backwards. 师运功. This is like a word for like kind of like doing good, volunteering. This is the word for cloud, and this is, suffice it to say, basically this means temple. So it's just the name of a temple.
Oh, okay. Okay, so yes, with your teacher's hat on officially, how and you probably get this from your students. If they were to approach you with something that we would say is conspiracy or something that's like, yeah, I've done my own research. What is the process you go through with them to like either talk them down, bring them back to reality, whatever?
JD is the right person because JD has taught me about this subject after he was a grown-ass man and told me it. Go ahead. Sorry.
I think the first part of it is you just listen first. And also the reason, and this does happen to me like a decent amount, is like kids will kind of like, it's not always like, oh, I heard this or something. Like they'll kind of like bring it up like out of the blue, and you'll be like, where the fuck did that come from? And then you're like, oh, you heard something and you want to test it on me. But you hear it enough from them and you're like, okay. So usually what I like do is hear them out, and I'll kind of like pull the thread a little bit, not too much. Like if they go, if they're going to go too far, I'm like, then I start pushing back. But generally speaking, I'm like, okay, what all do you know about this? Pull the thread until they're like, okay, that's kind of all I know. And I'm like, okay, so you have like a rudimentary knowledge, and they'll usually admit that's true. They're like, yeah, I kind of just heard about this. And so then you're starting from a point of like, all right, they kind of like, they admit that they don't really understand this. And they also, because we have a good relationship, they know I respect them and I'm willing to listen to them like I just did by letting them explain it and asking them questions about it to show that I care what their opinion is. Then I can give my pushback, and they respect my opinion because they, generally speaking, like sometimes I'm a shithead, like they know I'm a dumbass sometimes, but like generally speaking, they respect me. And so I can kind of like, then we start a debate. I'm like, okay, you got this is what you understand so far. What about this? And then we go into that. And that's generally how it works. And they may not, I mean, it may be, it's not necessarily one time where I'm just like I proved you wrong, hashtag like facts, logic, and reason or something. But like you can go after them enough with that stuff where like they'll eventually be like, yeah, no, you're probably right. Like, and then we can also go through the data. I'll be like, what data do you have? Because my classes are mostly based on that. Like they're based on research. So I'm like, okay, what research? Okay, it's a TikTok video. Okay, well, how about you go back and like, we use things like, actually like academic studies and things like that. Go find some stuff about that. And then half the time they're like, yeah, I couldn't really find anything. I'm like, why do you think that is? Okay. Now, what sites were you using? Oh, okay, here, I can show you that this is a Russian troll farm, or I can, whatever it is. And sometimes they generally bring things that like we have to have discussion about. And sometimes it does come down to like an opinion, or like it's very complex. And I'm like, okay, well, this is where I fall on it. But like, you're free to, I don't tell the kids like what they have to believe. I'm just like, this is my opinion. You know what my opinion is. And I'm going to be steadfast in that. But like, I also respect your right to disagree with me. So I think that's also part of it. But another thing, I forgot part of what I was going to say in response to your thing. Oh, the ABC thing. And now I'm ranting, but the ABC thing, I think if you do, because this is one of the benefits of teaching, is that I see them I see them every day, whether I actually have class with them, but I talk to them every day. So it's like, if I go from A to B for something, like I start to evolve my view on something, I can kind of walk them through that. And then when I move from B to C, it's easier. But if you just only sporadically contact each other and it's just like, oh, I found this new thing, and so I'm going to send it to all my followers on Facebook or something, or like do a post or whatever. Then like it's just like, well, what the wait, when did this happen? When did you jump
Yeah.
for that far? It's like, no, I
Yeah.
haven't.
People
I
do
just
that a
haven't
lot to
posted.
me.
But that's the thing is if you want those people to be in your community, you have to have that constant conversation.
Yeah.
And this is where I'll connect to another thing, which is recently I read the book by Bell Hooks, Feminism is for Everybody, which is I strongly recommend everyone go read if you're in any way
like her.
interested in feminism.
Yeah.
This is also her book. She literally says this is that she wrote it to like explain feminism to people who like are like, I want to understand feminism, but I don't want to read like a 300-page tract on like radical feminism and then liberal feminism and power feminism and all these. She's just like, yeah, she's kind of a Marxist feminist. I'm sorry if the word Marxist scares people off, but if it does, you probably don't understand what it means. But in any case, she like talks about these consciousness raising groups that they brought in the early part of the like second wave of feminist movement. But I think that's something we need is like, again, I talk about community a lot, but like these consciousness raising groups, which she talks about is like, it's almost like a struggle session, but like not to that degree of just like shitting on people. But it is like this idea where you like sit down and you talk about stuff and you like break bread, but you also challenge each other. And sometimes it's contentious, but it's not like adversarial. It's not, no, that's a shitty opinion. Fuck you. Like blah, blah, blah. No, it's like, no, I vehemently, and I tell the kids like this, I totally disagree with what you're saying. And they'll be like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm like, no, you don't need to apologize. I just totally disagree based on my evidence. So show me yours. I'll show you mine. That sounds bad, but we'll share evidence and then we can discuss from there. But I think people are really scared of that because they're scared they're going to be attacked. But I think if you disarm that kind of, then that's when we can have these discussions. And I'm sorry, that's my very long-winded way of saying like, I think that's what you have to do. And again, why do people not do this? Because it's easier just to go, I saw Alex Jones say something and it made me feel good. And so fuck it. That's what I'm going to say now.
But no, I like how you connected it too with relationship. And because I feel like that so much of the discourse online now is just between talking heads that will say this is true, someone says it's not true, and then it breaks down into the two camps of like, no, you're totally right, and the other ones are like, no, you're wrong, and then we just totally tribalize and like, nope, don't ever listen to these folks. We have all the answers we need now. Yeah.
That's what I was thinking, Stuart.
Sorry, but just one thing. It's mistaking neutrality for objectivity. And I think that's something that we have to get straight. Is like being neutral is not objective.
Can you explain that, JD, a little bit?
For instance, to use an extreme example, if I'm talking about the idea of like, is there misogyny in the world? To continue on the Bell Hooks example, if I bring in a person who's a misogynist and a person who says women are people, if I'm going to be objective, I can I can do research and find out, yes, there is a patriarchal system based on religion and culture and all these things. And actually, yeah, there are some points to this. If I'm going to be neutral, I say, he says women are dog shit and should stay in the kitchen. And she says women are equal to men. Guess we'll never know. Like that's the difference between neutrality and objectivity. And I'm not here to be neutral. I'm here to be objective as I can. Again, I'm biased too, and I try to admit that. But like, neutrality is a bullshit argument, in my opinion. And it's a bullshit stance because it's not a stance. It's the lack of a stance.
I'm glad Stuart brought up relationship because we're going to talk about resilience later, right? And resilience requires relationship. It's a community type of restorative justice kind of thing, and all that kind of fits together. I've been learning a lot recently about behaviorism and how our models of behaviorism that are about 100 years old, where we say either a carrot or a stick, right? Give them a reward or give them punishment. And then we say, when something happens, the kid in my class is being horrible or whatever, we say, we need a solution. We need to do something. And so we do something. And if they don't respond right because they don't know how, then, well, we tried. We did something, right? And they didn't respond. But resilience and all of that stuff takes relationship. It's exactly what JD was talking about. He builds a relationship with them, not to prove his point, but to have a decent dialogue and to to work together. I love that those what do they call them, restorative circles that they have, and they're experimenting with those in schools right now, bringing all the players together, the whole community that's involved in this situation, and let's resolve it together. What's my part? What did I do wrong?
Mm-hmm.
What can I do better? And then all of us talk about that together. Then it's not just, well, I gave them a carrot, or I gave them the stick or the peach tree limb, whatever your reference point is there.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't respond, so they don't care. But behavior is communication.
Mm.
Behavior is communication. It's not a choice. It's not always a choice how you're behaving, because you're traumatized before you even get to school. And when you get to school, you're just dysregulated, and so on. I think I just lost my train of thought. Go ahead, you guys.
So I
But
think you were somehow, you were somehow correlating trauma and being someone who believes in conspiracy theories. I thought there was like a tiny thread in there, and I was like, that's interesting. But that's a whole nother conversation.
Not emphatically, but I would say you're on the right track.
Well, I think a lot of those people are people who are classically, they don't have that kind of relationship or community. I mean, most of the people I met that are like, there's people that dip their toes in it. I think conspiracies are very interesting. I think most of them are obviously bullshit, because I tend to think that the government is far too stupid to be able to pull off something like that. But the people that are really bought into it, I think in a lot of cases are very ostracized from any sort of like real community. They may have some faux community or something, but I think in most cases, and probably there are caveats to this, but they tend to be people who are lonely and listen to AM radio and just kind of fall into these things because they don't have any other base, and they don't understand actually how to do their own research and things like that. And it's sad, but I mean, again, if you want to work against that, then you do have to build these relationships, which is kind of an uncomfortable thing, because, and this is one thing that I take a little bit of umbrage with in terms of the modern discourse, is like, everyone's just like, cut out toxic people, like, fuck them, like, and like, I get that, and I totally agree with it but to some degree, you also have to be like, well, if you want those people to turn around, you do have to, someone's got to do something, because if everyone's just like, fuck you, cut you off without any explanation, they're just going to get worse. Like, they're going to radicalize more. And I'm not saying, again, this is not to say like it's any one person's job. Like, if that person is a shithead to you, like, I'm not saying you need to like deal with like being shit on all the time, because it's not good for your mental health either. But at some point, someone's got to come along and do something. I don't know. And that's I don't know. That's something that I struggle with in my head a lot, because I have a lot of like what I would call friends that have shitty views. But it's just like, it's not like the core they're not like an organizer that's going out there every day. They're not like a grand wizard of the Ku Klux Klan going out there and like organizing. They just say shitty things sometimes. It's like, yeah, but you respond to that, obviously. But it's not like I'm just going to be like, oh, you said something that made me triggered, even though it's probably something that I might have said in high school. Like, I said really shitty things in high school because I was a shithead. So not to use Christianic language, but in some degree, we have to have a little bit of fucking grace, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It also sounds like you're using Christian language, that we need to evangelize those folks that are.
That's where I don't agree, though, is I don't think we have to evangelize.
I'm not saying that at all.
I know. But I do think there is like, we have to get almost to that point where we have to be there for people. But I'm not here to proselytize anyone, because I hate that shit too. But it's just like, what I do harp on people is when they're like, they ask for your opinion, and then they kind of they're like, well, you're just like, blah, blah. It's like, well, you fucking asked. So you want it. You want to know what I think. So there is some of that, but like, yeah, I generally wait until people ask for it, or I'm like, I disagree. Do you want to have a debate? And if they're like, no, I'm too scared, then I'm like, okay, it's fine. You're scared, but like, you also have to realize like, you're scared to have that debate. So go back and think about that, basically.
I like the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Universe, because Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Yeah. I shouldn't say it's 42. My favorite, and I don't even know what it is.
Don't panic, Carl.
But the answer to everything was 42, right? It happens to be my favorite number. But maybe if we could just say, I don't have to convert them to my way of thinking. I can share my insights. But maybe some way we need to say in our minds, there's no absolute solution. There's no, at least I haven't found it yet. Well, this is pretty good. Well, now I want everybody to do this. That's the mistakes I make. I get too evangelistic in all of my endeavors because I'm a teacher and I want everybody to feel what I'm feeling. And maybe sometimes it's just the drug of having something new, right? That someone brought up before.
And having followers.
Yeah. Yeah. There's drugs that kick off in your body, like you guys have already talked about that. But maybe just admit, I don't need to find an all-encompassing truth that unites us all, and that's kind of always what we're searching for. But relationship, I think you guys have also stressed relationship, which is so, so important.
And I feel like how you were mentioning it too, Carl, I think not to beat a dead horse to this conversation, but I just totally lost my train of thought. So I think that dead horse is dead.
Yeah. I think he was referring to me when he said dead horse, an old horse, something like that.
No, I refer to you as dead whore.
Okay.
From your
I
philandering
just got it a little
days,
wrong.
Carl.
Sorry about that. I didn't do my research.
It's as good a place I need to stop.